Hey, friends, thanks for being here today for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If you're new here, welcome. Do me a favor and thank whoever shared this podcast with you. You know what they say, sharing is caring. And I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode. If you're loving the podcast, you guys, do me a favor, head over to Apple Podcasts, scroll all the way down, and hit the leave a review button. I'm not going to be one of those people who say, leave me a 5-star review. If I'm honest, that's a little bit presumptuous and a pet peeve of mine. There, I said it. Yes, I did. But I am going to ask that you would leave an honest review because reviews are helpful and they help the algorithm pick us up and put us in front of more people. And I believe that God is at work here. He's doing great things through the people who are guests on this podcast, through the messages that we are putting out into the podcast space, and he's using it. And so the more people that can be helped by this, that he can use this to push forward or speak a word to, I'm here for it. So thanks in advance for leaving that review. I really appreciate you. Today's episode, super excited. I get to interview a friend of mine. We met almost a year ago, actually, at an event in California, and her name is Storie Esquell. You would think with a name like Storie, she would have a great story. And yes, she does. And in the course of the interview, I found out that this is actually the first time that she has shared a lot of this story publicly. She's, told people here and there personally, one-on-one, but this in a large scale, this is the first time that her story is getting out there. And I'm super honored that she trusted me enough, that she trusted this podcast enough to let God work through her story on this podcast in this arena. And so I'm going to put a little disclaimer out there. Storie has been through a lot in her young life. And it could, if you identify with some of this, it could mess with you. And so if you're not in a space that you can listen, if something comes up and you're like, nope, just can't, please don't listen to the rest of the episode or hit pause or fast forward or, whatever works for you. We're going to talk a lot about some women's health issues, infertility, and toward the end, we're going to talk about what God's moving her into now, which is the really hard space of mental health, specifically mental health for women. If you need to take a pass on this one, I totally get it. But I also think that there could be some healing here for you. And so I just am super excited to bring this episode to you to allow Storie a place to share what God has done in her life and is continuing to do in her life. She is really literally a walking miracle in so many ways. But here's the deal, y'all. We all are. We all have a story to tell. And hopefully by the end of this, you're going to realize that you do too. And I hope that you're brave enough to start sharing as well. If you're maybe not brave enough to do it publicly on a podcast, I would love for you to share it with me. So shoot me a DM. The way that you can reach me is down in the show notes. And anyway, without further ado, let's jump in. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, exploring how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith every single day in the marketplace. I felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of the few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. Hey friends, welcome to the podcast again this week. Thanks so much. If you are new, welcome. We are glad that you're here. And I am especially excited to introduce you to a friend of mine. We met, almost a year ago.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy. Yes.
That's crazy. In a little coffee shop at a hotel. And she told me her story. And I'm going to have her tell her story to you today. And, even from what she told me last year, her stories evolved. I think the Lord's faithful and gracious that our stories evolve all the time. He's continuously working in our lives and writing our story and turning the next chapter. And so I'm excited to introduce you to my friend Storie. I mean, I know you probably get that all the time, girl.
I am so thrilled to be here and do this with you.
So tell us about you, because you live a very interesting life. So I'm an HGTV girl, and so I feel like I live vicariously through you and your husband a little bit, because you could be on HGTV.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So we own a real estate company called 180G, and it is mainly focused on investing. So I technically have my Texas real estate license, which I use as a realtor, but then we also have a construction company that is within that. So we flip houses, and then we help people, especially people that are in distress situations. We help them get a fresh start, and being able to, if you have pre-foreclosures, foreclosures, we basically are the answer to that, to where we can get you out of that home, get money in your pocket, not have your credit score messed up. And then we put our love and our talents and gifts into that house. And then we use that house to help somebody have a new home. That was a dream that Rustin and I had 9 years ago. And we knew nothing really about real estate. We knew nothing really about construction. And it started with, we both worked through college, and that's where we met, was in college. And we went around and asked people if we could live in their house that was abandoned or vacant. We knew that it was rental property, but we chose run down ones, and said, hey, can we live here for cheaper rent? We'll fix it up.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So
okay, that's such a cool concept.
Yes, it was. And nobody, that was before, that was never something we got somewhere. That was just, looking back now, that was God laying all the foundation. So our first house was a 100-year-old farmhouse, which you think that sounds so awesome. No, it had no AC, it had no heat. It was a pier and beam home, and it was in the middle of nowhere. 30 minutes outside of town. And so, but I was like, I'm young and in love. And I'm like, oh, we're going to redo a farmhouse together. This is going to be so great. No, there was wasp all under the roof, in between where the framing is. It was an insane journey. Very glad we did it, because it jump started us into doing it several more times. So we actually ended up having the opportunity to completely redo my grandparents' home. That was a neat opportunity. And so now that's just kind of funneled in to what we do today.
That's so cool. I love that. When I first heard your story, I'm like, this child is I say child because I could be your mother, but this child is a walking book of miracles, literally, y'all.
So at 16, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. And I have lived that from about 9 to 16, just nobody ever knew what exactly was going on. So at that time, endometriosis, there was not celebrities talking about it. It was really more of this laughed off thing. And so we had gone to several different specialists, several different things. And there was a woman doctor that she was like, okay, this is not right. What all is going on with you? And so we did a surgery and found out that that's exactly what was happening. So because this had gone on for so long, and I had been on so many years of birth control and so many years of different trial experimental drugs and all this different kind of stuff, I was told at the age of 16 that I would have less than 1% chance of ever having a child. And at 16, it's kind of crazy, because I remember sitting there and being like, oh, okay, and not really taking that in, because I was 16. And keep in mind, where I grew up and how I was voted the least likely to ever get married in my high school, and I was voted the most likely to be successful. So that's just where kind of my mind, I worked very hard. I had several different jobs. I had started a business already. And so my mind wasn't even on anything like that. Sure. And it wasn't until later that I was like, oh, wow, that's, when you get into more of the dating stage of life, it's like, oh, okay, well, what would you do then if you dated and we got married? Like, I can't have kids. So that just completely changed this perspective that
Yeah.
I had on life, and not even knowing it then, but I carried so much shame and guilt
Mm.
for it. And so then there was this, it was like these words and this claim that was spoken over my life that it's like, okay, well then, since you can't have a child, most likely you're never going to get married. So your job now is to be the most successful you can. And you don't need to rely on anybody because nobody is going to be fair. So now you need to go figure out how you're going to provide the life that you want for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that put me on this path to, I worked even harder and I became more business oriented. And I leaned on being an entrepreneur because I knew that I would never be able to hold a job with anybody else because of how sick I was. And my just how I worked, but more because I couldn't commit to showing up. I couldn't commit to doing these different things. So I even remember this doctor one time being like, hey, you're never going to be able to hold a job with somebody. So you need to figure out how you're going to be able to provide yourself health insurance.
Oh,
Because
wow.
this is never going to end. You will always have endometriosis.
Wow.
And so from such a young age, that was put into my life. And it was a matter of surviving. It was not a matter of thriving. So like ever wanting to get to a point in my life where I was thriving was never something I even thought about. It was more the goal was, hey, you need to make as much money as you can to be able to afford health insurance so you don't have to worry when you have to take a week off of work and not do anything because you're sick.
Yeah.
And so all these things were spoken very early on in life. Now, keep in mind, I was still going to go to college. At that point in time, I trained horses. And so that was my goal. I was going to train horses and I was going to be a professional horse trainer and train performance horses. And so that's how I ended up going to school at Tarleton State in Stephenville, Texas. So originally I was in Georgia. But my world got turned upside down once again when I was a senior in high school, 4.0 GPA, had full ride scholarships, and I was going. All my stuff was packed in my mind, and I was going. And I woke up one morning and I was paralyzed from the waist down, and I could not see anything.
What?
And after being taken to the hospital, after being all these different things, doctors accusing me of being a suicidal teenager and doing this to get attention and all these other different things, we found out after I had been taken to a specialty hospital in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, that I had Guillain-Barré. That's how I say it because I'm from Texas. And basically, your body attacks itself and it shuts down. And when this happens, normally this paralyzes you up to your neck. And by the time anybody, at this point in time, this was a while ago, by the time anybody knows what's going on, it's paralyzed your lungs and you die.
Wow.
So in this particular case, which at this point in time, nobody had ever seen before, it was as if God drew a line, almost like where your belt would be. I needed assistance in everything. And so I was a very fierce, very independent 17-year-old girl that already knew that she was never going to be able to depend on anybody else. And I had to turn around and ask my mom to help me use the restroom and to do daily things. So I ended up staying at that children's hospital because praise the Lord, at that point in time, 17, you were still able to go to a children's specialty hospital, which of course you got, there was a lot more doctors, there were a lot more, just all these other different things and environments. And I stayed there until I learned how to walk again without feeling my legs. So I went into intense physical therapy and it was 6 days a week. You got to have Sundays off. And it was from 8 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon. And so I don't know if you've ever seen the movies where they put a brace around the legs and you're like on the poles learning how to walk. So that is what we did. And we knew that my brain was still registering my eyesight. So we knew that was a temporary thing. And that was actually my body's response to everything that was happening. It just shut my vision off. So that came back within a month or so. And then basically nobody knew whether I would ever feel my legs again.
Wow.
So for me, as somebody that was being driven, so I was going to be a horse trainer. Like that was my job. I had full ride scholarship. Like I was going and doing the things. My entire world was turned upside down. And I did make 100% recovery, but it took a very, very long time. So I actually went back home and left that hospital before I could ever feel my legs. It was the craziest thing because it started coming back in different like splotches on my legs. So like my mom had this thing where she would walk by and she would randomly just like grab my leg and like tickle me to see if it would respond. Because keep in mind, like there was no responses to anything. Like I had no feeling. And we were sitting outside one evening, it was just her and I, and she walked by and she did that, and my leg reacted.
Wow.
And it was, I remember just like just this huge pivotal moment. Not only that I could feel my legs, but it was like, I told you all your doctors you were wrong. I told you I would walk again. I told you I would ride a horse again. I told you I would do that. And that was so funny looking back. That was the thing I had told my mom, and I had this agreement that when I began to feel my legs, I could get back on a horse. Because my horse, like riding horses, like that was my passion. That was my soul.
Yeah.
It's like that was what I did. And so I remember looking at her, and she's over there crying. I'm like, hey, when can I go ride? And she's like, Storie, you can only feel like this much of your leg. And I said, yeah, but you said when I start to feel my legs again.
You said.
You say I had to wait completely until all of it. So I did end up going to college. I did end up, doing all those different things, but it definitely just took my journey in such a different way. Shall we go into little Sienna? Or you want me to? Okay.
I mean,
okay,
people need to know.
Okay. So Preston and I ended up getting married, and we found out. So we were very, very newlyweds, and we found out on Christmas that I was pregnant. And the reason why we even took a pregnancy test on Christmas is because at that point in time with my endometriosis, it was pretty intense at that point in time. And so I was on hormone treatments. And the hormone treatments the goal of it was to trick my body into thinking that I was pregnant, to give my body relief in time for the endometriosis to chill out. But in that, I had to take a pregnancy test every 6 weeks to make sure that there was not an ectopic pregnancy. The irony in all of this is insane.
Yeah.
And so that evening, Preston and I are sitting across this little table from one another, and my mom had given him this like man skin lotion for Christmas, right? And so he has it on his face, and he goes, "Look, babe, I'm glowing." And when he said that, I was like, I haven't taken my pregnancy test. I'm like, okay, well, I need to go take that. And Preston looked at me and he was like, Storie, I love you. We can wait till tomorrow. I don't think we need to take it tonight. And I was like, no, I'm going to take it tonight because I have it written on my calendar and that's what I'm going to go do. And so I go into the bathroom and I take this pregnancy test. Keep in mind, I've taken these time and time and time again, and I've become immune knowing that they will never say pregnant.
Yeah.
Ever, but that I'm taking them to make sure I don't have an ectopic pregnancy and need to be rushed to a hospital. So just that emotional part as a woman, it's like, okay, well, that's an interesting, feeling. And it read pregnant. And so we had a house full of people. My mom was there. My great aunt was there. Keep in mind, they also know, like my mom knows she will never be a grandmother. So I was like, okay, well, I can't tell my mom. I'm not going to do that to any of these people. Of course, I tell Preston though. And so I end up calling my specialist because we have had a very long relationship. This one we've done all the exploratory surgery, all the things with. And I'm like, hey, I don't know what to do right now. Do I go to a hospital? Do I go? And he's like, Storie, I need you to know that I know you just got married and I know it's Christmas, but this is not a miracle. You are not pregnant and you need to know that. He's like, he goes, by the last test and everything, and when your cycle was, he goes, come to my office tomorrow and I will meet you there. So we drive, because his office is in Dallas, so we drive 2.5 hours. Now, also in this, keep in mind that Preston and I are supposed to, in January, we're supposed to leave and go live our dream of going to live in Montana and go work a ranch there. And we have sold the majority of our things. We have sold the majority of our things. And so that's where we're going. This is what's happening right now. And so we end up going to the doctor's office. He does this little speech and he's like, Storie, I know you believe in God. I know, all this, but this is not a Christmas miracle. And I was like, okay, well, can we just like get on with this? We don't need to really keep talking about it. And so he does an ultrasound And he looks at me and his face turns white. And he's like, I have been doing this for 30 years and I've never been wrong. He goes, you're pregnant. And I remember just looking at Reston, and Reston's about to fall over, but he's trying so hard to like stand up tall and just in because we're prepared to end up going into immediate surgery. We're prepared,
Yeah.
for whatever, all these other things, but never that. Never, never,
Never a baby.
never a baby.
Mhm.
And so I think we got about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes that we got to have a conversation, just Reston and I. And then he comes back in and says, hey, I needed a moment to process to understand exactly what to tell you. He goes, but I need you to understand that you can't keep this baby. He's like, you can't do that. He goes, your body can't carry this child. He goes, you won't make it. This is not, you can't do this.
Mm.
And I remember being just so just like, no, you're out of your mind. Like you said, this wasn't a Christmas miracle, and this is a Christmas miracle. So I don't really know how much I can trust your judgment at this point in time. But then also having this in my mind, it's like, yes, Roy, but this man is also one of the reasons why you're able just to even live somewhat of a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just all this emotion and all this thing. And I'm like, no, that's not, no, we're not going to do that. And he's like, I need you to understand that the longer you do this, the harder it's going to be.
Mm.
And before I even had a moment to think about it, and I was like, and I need you to understand that you're going to have to figure something else out because that's not an option.
Wow.
And then I remember looking at Reston and being like, that's not an option. And so, and we both very much so knew that, but so now he's in the position of like, oh, okay, well, we just got married. And now we're going to go down this road. And I don't know at the end of this if I'm going to have a wife.
Mm.
So that was our first year of marriage. So we completely pivot our entire life. And we ended up moving to Austin, Texas, because that was the quickest place that Reston got a job. I had talked to a couple of different doctors there, and I felt like we had the best opportunity on somebody that was going to be on board with what we were doing and the choices that we were making. And which we did, found an amazing doctor. And then soon after that, I was put on bed rest. We kept our pregnancy a secret. Nobody knew. A handful of people knew. And that was it. Facebook didn't know. Nobody knew. And it was a decision we made because I didn't want any external forces or opinions or other people's thoughts in their mind. Like I could not take on anybody else's fear because I was doing it enough. And so that relationship of God resting in me, and that was it. So he started working 16-hour days, and I was on a couch. So I was not going anywhere. That is actually how I ended up getting my real estate license. I was sitting there. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I have to do something. Like this is not going to work. Like I've got to do something. And so that's how I ended up. God laid in front of me the opportunity to get my real estate license for, I think it was like $97 or something like that.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And so that's how I spent all that time doing
incredible.
And then she was born, and we had a little couple bumps in the beginning. And so same thing with me, but she is a healthy, thriving 6-year-old, and you would never have any idea that she was not just supposed to be 100% healthy. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Your story just astounds me. And I know that the Lord has walked you through so much. And I mean, y'all, if you don't think that you can be a walking billboard for the goodness of God, open up your mouth.
Yeah.
You may not have a story like this one, but you do have a story. God wants you to share. He wants you to tell others what he's doing in your life and what he has done in your life and what he will continue to do in your life. And man, looking back and seeing all of those little through lines that you had no idea would lead you to where you are today, which is different now than it was even 5 months ago. So I know you guys still have your construction business, your real estate, and you're still flipping. I know that your last few months has been really traumatic. And as traumatic as it was, it seems like the Lord has been very clear with you on where he is leading you for this next season. Hasn't this episode been amazing so far? I'm going to let you get right back to it, I promise. But this is the time in the show that I get to remind you about our focus organization for the month. And in October, we're focusing on Bell and Sparrows. It is an amazing organization that serves women that are coming from a hard place and helping them get back on their feet. And y'all, I know that we can do some good in banding together with this organization to help even more women. There are so many ways that you can do that. You can find it all on their website, which is linked in the show notes. And if you are a auditory person, it's Bell and Sparrows, BELLEANDSPARROWS.org. And there are lots of different ways that you can get involved. They just take donations, which is fantastic. If you are more of a hands-on person, they are doing mission trips that you can go on and join them in the actual ministry that they're doing. And then one of my favorite things to do is shop. I love to shop, and they have the most amazing candles. Their fall scents are amazing, and you're going to want one for your home. And why don't we make a pact right now? Let's get our Christmas shopping done in October. You get everybody a Bell and Sparrows candle. They are happy with their gift. Bell and Sparrows gets to help more women. And then something that I'm doing right now for my own business. So business owners, listen up. They can white label their candles with your logo. And I'm actually using them for client gifts. And they're beautiful, you guys. So again, go to bellandsparrows.org. You'll find the link in the show notes and find out how you can get involved and support this amazing organization. Now, back to the show. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about, I know you call it your mission, and we should all have a mission in life. Maybe just tell us a little bit about what's been going on and what he has had you pivot into, because it's awesome.
Throughout this time, I keep hearing about women, and particularly moms, that have made the choice to leave this world too soon. Absolutely heartbreaking. And I remember, and it wasn't just, it wasn't women that I saw on the news or on an interview. These were women that I either went to school with, I knew their families. Like there was a tie of some sort. And I remember I kept talking to God about that and being like, Father, how? And with no judgment, being like, what could have that mom have been feeling to make that choice? How alone could she have felt? Like, did she not have anyone that she could go to? Did she have people that she could go to, but she felt insecure and that she would be judged, or that she couldn't be honest about what she was going through? And I went to the grocery store, and I was in my car, and I got a text message from a woman that I know that informed me that another woman, another mom, had committed suicide. And this was in May, and it was the 10th mom that I knew personally or knew of in 2020. My entire world just stopped. And I was like, okay, there has to be more that can be done, because the place that you would have to be to believe that your family and that your child would be better off without you is a place that I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine being there. And so that was the day that I went onto Instagram Live, and I said, and I had no plan, I had no anything. I said, for the next 10 days, I'm going to share accounts to follow. I'm going to share music to listen to. I'm going to share devotionals. I'm going to share books. I'm going to share anything that I have ever used that has helped me get out of a dark spot or a hard moment. And in that moment, I thought, it's like, okay, well, maybe they didn't know what they didn't know. Maybe they used social media as a way to kind of like a release. And then they would get on social media and all they would see is flawless pictures and, just Instagram worthy, lives and all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, well, that doesn't help you. That doesn't help you when you're in a dark spot. That doesn't help you when you don't know where to turn. That doesn't help you when you feel unworthy or unequipped. And it's like, I don't know the answer. I don't know. I will never get to know how those women felt.
Mm.
But I feel like I need to be so careful with my words speaking on that. I can't help but feel that they did not feel like they had a story worthy of telling.
Mm. Wow.
And that is something that just truly, it hurts to know that there is a woman that obviously has been through things, because you're in that spot, right? You even think that that's an option. You're that's on the board as an option. And if you're in that place, I don't know how you would feel value. You would feel purpose. You would feel worth. You would feel that you have a story to tell. And in that moment, and then seeing the response that I got from simply over those next 10 days sharing the accounts that I follow. You were one of those accounts. Brooke was one of those accounts. Rich Fernandez was one of those accounts. And it's like, if you get on social media and you feel like crud about yourself, you need to take an inventory check, because whether you know it or not, you're allowing that to be a part of your world. The spirit of comparison is coming up, and then the doubt, and then the unworthiness. And I was like, so maybe if I just put out there enough people that you could fill your circle with, maybe somebody would feel different.
Yeah. Man.
And I was like, I don't know if this is going to help anybody, but I remember thinking, this is something I can do. Because I wonder if any of those 10 women, did somebody else know? Did somebody else know that they felt that way? Or did they keep it all in?
Yeah.
And so when I did that 10-day thing, the response that I got from people were like, thank you for sharing this. I didn't even think about that what I consume on social media is a part of my circle of 5, the 5 people I spend the most time with. Like, I never thought about the music that I listen to, that those are words that I repeat in my head. And I remember being like, okay, we're onto something here. We're like, this is somewhere where we can start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was how this mission was born.
So would you say, Storie, that I know that you're still doing your real estate business, your construction business. So that has not changed, but is this a business for you, or is it a ministry for you, or is it both?
It's both.
That's amazing. So tell me what you're doing with this now. So I know you've had some social media mishaps over the last couple of days. Blast that social media. Another reason why you should never build your business only on social media, people.
100%.
But I know that it does play a big part in what you're doing, at least currently. And so tell me what does this new venture, this new mission encompass?
So as of right now, the mission behind it is to, number one, help women deepen their walk with God, level up their faith. Because I firmly believe I have been through hard seasons where my faith was nowhere close to where it is now. And I can only begin to imagine how different I would have felt in those times if I would have had that relationship. So I believe personally, through my personal experience, that is the number one step to anything, whether your life is grand and glory or whether you're really struggling, is where are you at in your faith and your walk with God? Number two, I believe that every single woman has a story to tell. I believe we all have purpose. I believe we all have value. And I believe that if we can understand the seasons of wilderness that God has walked us through, understanding that that is in fact preparation for a calling, for a purpose in a season, we will begin to understand and find our value. We will understand our purpose. We will understand our calling.
Yeah.
And I believe that in that, we have the opportunity as women to not gatekeep those solutions that we have found. I believe that in all of these wilderness times, all of these hard challenges, whether we know it or not, we are finding solutions to problems. And if we had a problem, somebody else has it. 100% somebody else has it. And I believe that we can build businesses as women that add value and add service.
Yep.
That give the glory to God, that advance the kingdom.
Yep.
That align with our purpose.
Preach, girl.
With her. So I had the amazing opportunity, I guess about a month ago, to help a woman create a journal she is a mom of special needs kids. She has 2 special needs children. And it was a coloring book, but it was a journal for that when her child was having a really, really hard time calming down, she was able to hand this journal to them and they could color. And the colors that they chose were how they felt. Wow. And it was their way of how to communicate with her about what was going on.
Wow.
So she had no idea, never crossed her mind that another mom could be having, that another mom needed that solution, that. And so we worked together and I was like, well, this is something you're passionate about. This is a problem that you have found a solution for. And I was like, and there are other people that need that. And then we walked through, she's like, well, Storie, I feel so guilty for charging people money for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, walk me through that. And she's like, well, I want to be charitable. I want to be giving. I want to be doing that. I'm like, okay, well, you don't need to charge $100 for it necessarily. I said, but I have a question for you. When you receive that income, will you tithe it? Will you give? And she's like, well, yes. And I said, so you're advancing the kingdom with something that aligns with you. And within that, now she is having real conversations with moms that are going through the same thing that she's going through. So now she's speaking from a place of authority to be able to help these women that are a few months behind where she is.
Yeah.
So now those women have somebody that they get to go to.
Yeah.
That have walked that road.
So beautiful. So much about it that I love. I love that God just shows off. But you have also experienced some not so great ramifications because of your obedience. And I think that's important for people to hear because nowhere does it say that we will be comfortable in our journey of following Christ.
No.
In fact, it says the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, obviously that looks different for everybody, right? We experience first world problems.
Absolutely.
Right. But it has taken a toll, I'm assuming, on your actual main business.
Yes.
Right. So your obedience to speak out about what God's doing in your life and how he's pivoting your mission has taken a toll on your real estate and investment business.
It has taken a toll on our income that we live on.
Just to be super clear, people.
It's very clear.
Yeah. So, I mean, this podcast is this, right? It was born out of this, her faith at work. So, if you're new here, it's that double meaning, her faith at work in her own life and in the life of other people, but also her faith at work in what she does, like in her physical business or at her job or whatever she's doing, her faith, how does it play into those things? And I think the reason that this podcast came up is because I heard multiple women tell me, I am afraid that if I show how much I love Jesus, it is going to affect my business. It's going to affect my income. And I knew that I had to speak out and say, yes, it might, but it's worth it. And so tell us just a little bit of your pivot on social and the ramifications, and then I'm going to ask you if it's worth it.
My social media in the past has been geared towards my businesses. That's what I use social media for. And so in this season or in these past few years, that has been real estate. So our construction business, all these different kinds of things. And I have lost clients in that business, in this new pivot that God has told me, not asked me, told me to walk through.
Yeah.
And the reason is, and I had made the choice to treat the conversation as a sales conversation. So in sales, when you have an objection, you understand, you find out why you have the objection, right? So I had a client that said, hey, I can't work with you. I'm like, okay, why? Well, you on this new thing that you're doing, you're speaking a little bit too much openly about your faith and about God. And I'm concerned, now Storie, I love you, but I'm concerned that people aren't going to want to do business with you representing me. Because, in our day-to-day world, we find a new name. What's the first thing we do? We look them up on social media. Well, my social media currently is not about interest rates. It's not about how to flip a house. It's not about budget sheets. It's about the Lord. And it's about what God is doing in my life and my obedience. And he's like, I just can't have you represent me because I believe that your faith can cost me a deal. And that took a minute. I thought it would come, but to be really honest with you, all my social media insights and analytics have just gone downhill. So I didn't really know if people were really seeing it or not. I didn't really know because people aren't engaging with it. So it was like, are people really seeing it? I was like, okay, maybe we have a little bit longer before this starts making an impact if it's going to. And then I realized that people are seeing it. They are seeing it because I have had acquaintances and friends that are like, hey, I liked you better when you didn't share your faith. I don't want to really hang out with you. And in continuing to kind of push a little bit further, because I'm like, okay, well, if you don't want to hang out with me, that I understand, but I'm gonna ask you why, and we're gonna find an answer here, because in that I get to use that wilderness, that objection, to then help and provide value in the women that I'm talking to, because like, hey, this is what you're gonna go through. When you follow what he is telling you to do, not everybody's gonna be on board. It's just not. So in that following what he has called me to do, it is lonely.
Yeah.
It's a lonely place. It can be challenging. And where I physically live is a smaller town. Like I don't live in a metropolitan city. So when I'm posting about my faith or when I'm talking openly about my health journey, there are people seeing it that we do business with. There are people seeing it that are the parents of kids that Sienna goes to school with. So it directly, in talking about this as boldly as I have been told to talk about it, it is directly affecting our lives.
Yep.
It's affecting Reston. It's right up and it's not all, rainbows and butterflies at all. It's not. That has been challenging. You can't run from it. You can't dress that up. You can't, and as somebody that, that honors so much in what the Lord has done in my life, it's like, wow, you don't want to be my friend because I love Jesus. And I'm going to talk about it. And not necessarily that it hurts my feelings, because, this does sting a little bit, but even in knowing that, like taking yourself out of it, it's not personal. It's not personal, but in another woman not wanting to be my friend or be around me because I speak about faith in Jesus, most likely she is that woman that feels unworthy. She is that woman that doesn't feel valued. She is that woman that stands in her kitchen at 6 o'clock in the morning after she's spent her morning looking at social media and stands around and looks and finds problems here and finds problems there and then compares her life. And so that's the part that blindsided me. That's the part that I'm like, wow, but I would venture to guess underneath all the filters and underneath all the people pleasing, this is actually how you feel. And is that the reason why this makes you uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Like our community, there's a community that I started on Facebook, free private community where I was sharing 30 days of journal prompts, devotionals, and a prayer, and just really and it was more just of a jump start to help
Sure.
people like, hey, take inventory of where you're at. How
Mhm.
much is God in your life? Where are you looking when you're struggling, all this different kind of stuff? Well, it got reported as inappropriate content and spam. And so it's shut down.
Amazing.
Mhm. My personal Facebook is under review because I'm the admin of the group.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but even in all that, and that has been very frustrating because I have women that have shown up in that group.
Mm-hmm.
I have women that I am adding value to, that I am walking with them through the struggle. So then it feels as a direct attack from the enemy.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, Storie, no, you don't get to help those people. And it's like, no, we are going to help them because I just went and found their phone numbers. And I now have texted them and be like, hey, this is how we're going to go about this. Because now I know even more that by having this shut down, this is even more confirmation that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And maybe, just maybe, it's the confirmation that it's like, hey, I need you to level it up. Because a Facebook group story, that's awesome and that's cute. But where can you add more value? I need you to put even more value and more time into this.
So I mean, I think that's probably, that's Christian business owners, one of their fears, right? And why they don't talk about their faith is because they're afraid that it's going to affect the bottom line. But in my opinion, the bottom line is that it will, and it should, because look at Jesus.
Yeah.
Look at his disciples. They gave everything. Everything. And so you have to be able to, you have to answer that for yourself. Is it worth
100%.
it? That's the question. Is it worth it? But if the answer comes back, no, it's not worth it to me, then you probably need to take a little spiritual inventory yourself.
Yeah. And understand that if it's not worth it and you really feel that way, then your faith, you gotta just go after that because you're not like, and this may be too bold, but you don't trust the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's hard. And I feel like I do get to say that because of I didn't trust a plan. I didn't do that. And so, but that's what it comes down to. And it's like, do you trust who God has made you to be? And do you trust him? Do you trust his plan? Because he tells us that he will care for us. He will take care of us. And I have watched that happen.
Yeah.
I have watched, our entire company is real estate and construction. Well, that's not the hottest topic and the most, profitable business at the moment. And so to launch off and start, not being a people pleaser and being bold and saying these things, that they do make me uncomfortable to say some days.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Lord, well, I don't want people to think that like I'm talking down to him or doing any of this. And he's so quick to remind me, it's like, Storie, that's not what you're doing. Your test is your testimony, and that's what you're sharing.
That's good. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that I think that there are so many pieces to your story that different people have been able to grab onto today, that I know that it's been a blessing in many, many people's lives. And I just appreciate you being willing and vulnerable enough to come on here and share the whole thing. And I just appreciate your time. Tell your husband and your baby girl, thank you for sharing you with me for a minute.
Thank you for everything. Thank you for everything and your boldness and your obedience, because I know it's not easy and I know it's not simple. You have a lot going on and you continue to show up, and you are truly one of the most consistent people. And I know that I can count on you. When you say that you're going to do something, I can count on you because you show up, because you know who is on the other side of your obedience. You know who you're serving.
Thanks, Storie. That's encouraging to me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So tell everybody where they can find you when they want to go follow you in all the places.
So it's Storie Esquell. So it's my name and my last name. That's it.
All right. We're going to link all of that in the show notes for you guys to have. And we will be praying that Facebook group gets miraculously unbanned.
Yes.
Hallelujah. In the
Yeah.
name of Jesus, here we
In the
go.
name of Jesus.
All right. Thanks, you guys, for joining us again this week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.